Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a video for you about this little guy, which actually ain't that little. This is the Kansept knives Tuckamore right here. So, today's video is going to be yet another one of those that's a little bit weird, right? I'm still drowning, I'm still trying to dig out, and I still don't have time to give it the full Shabazz, so to speak. But what I am going to go on ahead and do is do a disassembly and then give you some of my impressions of the knife, good and bad, and still honest, of course. That way, at least you know something about it, even if I don't have time to tell you everything, so to speak. But before I go any further, I do still want to let you know that this guy was sent to me by Kansept. They reached out with a laundry list of new releases, and I looked through it and I said, well, that individual one looks interesting, and indeed it is, actually. I'm very glad I went for it, right? Because this is a really interesting knife, but nonetheless, they did send it along. As always, they know I'm going to talk about the good, the great, the bad, the ugly. It might be a gem, it might be junk, but they did still send it along. We do have to assume, though, that this is the very best quality controlled one of these guys ever, and I'm doing my best not to let that affect the nature or the quality of my review. Next thing, let's do a little bit of size comparison before I dive into the disassembly here. What we're going to see is next to your Delica. Yeah, this is actually of some size, right? Here it is next to a Spyderco PM2, and what we're going to see is this is right in the PM2 category, size-wise, and in terms of overall sharpened blade length. It's actually a little bit longer in terms of sharpened length than your PM2. Then here it is against your Rat2, so you can get a sense this is actually a pretty reasonably big knife. Now, what I want to do is take it apart a little bit and talk a little bit more about it, right? Go ahead and put down my mat. If you're curious about this mat or any of the other tools I use, go ahead and check out nickshabazz.com/tools. I have a full listing of everything. Let's go ahead and take this apart. These look like T6, so I'll grab my T6 driver here. Let me go ahead and stash the blade. No sense living dangerously. Danger is, in fact, not my middle name. But I'll go ahead and pop that out. A little bit of blue thread locker, it looks like, on the screw. Not a big deal. I'll go ahead and put that up there. I'll go ahead and put that here, and I think I just need to take out this, and this, and we should be able to take this apart, and I really don't expect anything particularly shocking on the inside here. But this is a knife that, spoiler alert, I think this is T8. Yeah, this is T8. Is it free spinning? It sure feels free spinning. Yeah, it's free spinning. All right. Well, you can go on ahead and slot that one in the bad column. But anyways, nevertheless, this is a knife that I have found actually quite refreshing. Right, Kansept is a company that makes a lot of knives, right? They are definitely in the quantity sort of knife-making tradition. And some of those knives are incredible, right? Kansept has made some very nice pieces, and they've also made some stuff that is not particularly good, and at the very least not particularly remarkable, and that was some very strong thread locker there that has been massively over applied. You can see the thread locker is actually up inside the pivot there. Yikes. But anyways, Kansept is kind of a hit or miss on occasion, right? And most of the time, you might be thinking, well, Nick, everything you talk about is great. Well, yeah, that's because I don't talk about a lot of it, right? There's a lot of stuff that goes out that's just, it's fine, right? This is way, way better than fine. This is a great knife, and it's a knife that feels a little bit different. It feels a little novel in terms of its design, in terms of its affordances, this big, long, true Warney blade. This is a knife that actually caught me off guard, that is way better than I expected it to be. Not that I expected it to be bad necessarily, but it's just like, wow, this is cool. This is really nice. And that was a pleasure, right? It kind of came out of left field a little bit for me. And so I'm very happy to see them doing some stuff that is sort of, I don't want to say shocking necessarily, because it's a it's a flicker frame lock, I suppose. You use the blade hole here. But at the same time, it's certainly good to see. And I'm kind of going through and cleaning out the inside of the pivot hole here just because of the sheer amount of Loctite was put in there. That was a lot. So hopefully I can clean that off, and I'll try and get into the top of the pivot here. Yeah, you can see the amount of Loctite that's in there. But I was very, very impressed and remain very, very impressed with this guy out of the box. It's a nice reminder that really designs make knives. If anything, the world of modern knife making sort of reveals to us that just making the knife well isn't good enough anymore. It really needs to be about a great design. both in terms of design language and in terms of approach. Kansept stuff is always made reasonably well. Whether it's remarkable is sort of a different question, and that boils down to the designer. Designer here, by the way, is a guy named Jonathan Stiles, who I had never for the life of me heard of. Right, here's his little maker's mark over there. Neat maker's mark. No clue who this dude is, but he can sure make a knife, and that's really nice. That's good to see. And we're going to see, speaking of things that we see here, let me clean off the pivot here, just see if I can't get some of that thread locker off of that, because, oh boy, that was a lot. Oh yeah, look at the sheer amount. Over at the factory, had a whole caulking tube full of thread locker and just let her have it. Anyways, this was this one kind of came out of left field for me. Whoa there, as I throw random knife accoutrements across the freaking room. And so as a result, though, it's gotten carried actually a fair amount because it is quite good. It's a little bigger than, frankly, I prefer, right? I tend to stick around the 3-inch sort of range, but at the same time, this is good enough that it just carries nice and is good enough that I'm very happy to carry the knife. And so this actually has seen, at least for me, a fair amount of pocket time, right? And much more so than I think a lot of other Kansept pieces that have come across the table, which are like, yeah, this is cool. Yeah, this is nice enough. And then I move back on. This I've reached for, right? And that's I suppose, saying something, especially on days when I don't even have the time to think about reviewing anything, where it's just like, let me grab something in the pocket that'll be fun. This actually qualifies, and that's nice. I appreciate that. I'm going to put some thread locker back on here. I'm going to use this blue Loctite on a stick over here, and go on ahead and coat the edge of the screw here. That's way too damn much. Damn, I'm good. Ay. But anyway, so this has gotten carry, and it's gotten more carry than I sort of expected it to for a random Kansept. But that's a testament to how damn good this design is. Okay, trying that again. There we go. That'll be a reasonable amount of thread locker. And I'll put that on there. Get this seated happily. And I'm going to, as always, as I am screwing in the pivot, oh yeah, that's fully free spinning. That's annoying. But I will loosen the pivot a little bit, so that way I'm not trying to do this while the blade is under some tension. Slightly over-tighten it there, but I don't super-duper care. Did I forget a bearing, or is there just some bit of... Oh no, there was just like a hair or something in the bearing race. Whatever. All right, now let's go on ahead and put in the 2 body screws, and we are pretty much done here. This is one of those disassemblies that kind of doesn't need to exist, right? Because how do you take it apart? Just like any other damn frame lock, right? There's really nothing to it, but I also acknowledge that some people have never taken apart a frame lock before, and so this is brand new news to them, so to speak. But either way, the Tuckamore here, as I've got this back together. Okay, no blade play. That's a little over tight, I think. Let me loosen a little bit. You did see the little stainless steel washers on top of the tie, which is always nice. And we are pretty much scented. Yeah, that's as scented as I think we need it to be. No blade play. Much smoother action. Oh, the one thing I did not end up doing was putting a little bit of lubrication on the detent ball. So I'm going to reach on in here with this needle applicator and put a little on there. And that should smooth it out even a little bit further. Oh, yeah. And we are good to go. And we'll jump into my impressions of the thing. As I mentioned, this knife really did catch me off guard. And the reason for it is a couple of things. To start with, I think it's just overall, it's well designed, right? You get a lot of signs of a good designer. One of those, for instance, just to nitpick here, is that the clip here is actually both well done, right? You have enough ramp underneath it. You have enough ramp at the front of it. You have enough space here for your pants. You have, and the angle of it is good, right? It holds the knife back and off to the side in your right-hand pocket. Lefties, I'm sorry, no love for you here. Even though there could be, right, because the opening hole is available from both sides. But the clip works well, and it holds the knife at a nice angle. The other thing I'll highlight here is that because there's no flip-a-tab here, this guy carries very nicely. It just kind of tucks into the side of your pocket, and your hand just kind of reaches right past it into the pocket. That's just beautiful. I also like these inlays here. These are kind of a coppery, there's a like carbon fiber with copper layers in here, which is nice. This particular model, as it stands with this configuration, I'm seeing it for about $188 in pre-orders, $188, which, considering this is a 20CV titanium frame lock with fancy carbon fiber, yeah, that's pretty damn solid. But anyways, so you see that nice little detail. The overall knife is very contoured, right? These are not flat scales, right? This whole thing has a contour to it, right? It is a curvature to it. You can tell that the designer really did, well, spend a lot of time thinking about things. You also see areas like, for instance, this scalloping here, which are both actually nice. I mean, not only aesthetically, this one works very nice for the finger overall, and you can actually choke up a little bit further into this area here if you want to get a little bit of a, nicer grip, a little closer to the edge of the blade. The jimping here is good. It's plenty strong, but it's not particularly aggressive, which is nice. This extra bit of carve out here is very, very good for getting your thumb in here. If you want to use this as a thumb opener, you can. In practice, I've been using this as an index flicker, where you just pop it open that way. I'm sure, yeah, you can also use your middle finger, particularly if you had larger hands, that would be a really nice choice. But it opens very, very well because of all of that, right? And then the overall design of it is good, right? You have this line swooping into this little area here, which feels good. You have the blade on it, has this nice little swedge here, which is, it's got a little tiny bit of harpoon, but it's not so much that it's actually a problem, right? That harpoon just barely sticks up above the overall line of the knife, so it's not like an obnoxious harpoon, right? Spyderco stovepipe, I'm kind of looking at you there. Cool knife, but obnoxious. Anyways, that's sort of a thing as well that it's got going on. And then the biggest thing that I kind of like about this is it is a true Wharncliffe blade. What I mean by that is this is actually a flat Wharncliffe bottom, right? If I take my ruler here, what we're going to see is that this is basically a flat bottom. There is a little tiny bit of pickup at the very back here, coming from the sharpening, but this is a completely flat Wharncliffe blade. And the way that it's done actually makes it so that you could drag this along a surface to scrape, which can be a nice, useful thing. I'm not saying this is your new wood plane or anything like that, but it is definitely a thing. You've got a nice, strong tip on it. This is a Wharncliffe in a very real, very good sense. Right? I like this as a Wharncliffe a lot. And true Warnies like that are just not that common. And when they are found, they are very often really weird in other ways. And this is a knife that's absolutely fine. It carries just fine in a number of reasonable ways. And then, of course, the bigger issue here is the price, right? A 20 CV blade coming down to a reasonably slicey edge here with good fit and finish, a solid action. It's not, I'm going to be real here, it's not the nicest action I've ever felt, right? There are definitely knives on my table with nicer, smoother action. This has a little tiny bit of grit on the blade. I kind of imagine it's from the sort of the grinding here that they had initially done, and there's no additional polish there. But this is actually, for $188, that feels like pretty good value. You can get other styles that come down a little bit lower. I think I saw one for $170 some odd, and one at like $215 with some other fancy to do it. But for 20 CV for a frame lock, that's pretty nice. And plus, just the details, right? This little piece here keeps your finger off the lock bar, right? This inlay here, or overlay, I suppose, bolster, I don't even know what the heck this is called anymore. But this little detail keeps your fingers off of there, so you don't have to worry about, pressing down on the lock bar as you're doing anything. It's just really, really good for the price. In terms of your negatives on this, there's just not that much wrong with it. The action on it is not the smoothest thing ever. And I say that not because it's bad, but just because that's one of the few things that I can kind of point to, right? It's a little bit weird action-wise, and so I think that that'll probably change as you use it more. I imagine the tent ball will kind of wear itself a nice little track over time, and it will smooth out even further than it is right now. You could probably polish things up a little bit there. So that's a minor demerit to it. And then the other issue with it is that you've got a copper inlay here and then what looks to be brass or brass-colored surround for the pivot. And that feels like a missed opportunity, right? This feels like it probably should have been copper if they're going to have a copper everywhere else in the knife. I mean, maybe aesthetically that didn't work out, but I'm just not that impressed. See, by the way, look at this nice little detail of when it's closed, the blade matches there. Not important, but it is nice. So on the whole, I guess my conclusion for this knife is that this is pretty damn good for $188, right? I'm not going to sit here and tell you that's an incredible budget bargain, and I know that for many people that's just as out of, hand as anybody else, but at the same time, I do appreciate that, and I think that is a very, very solid price, and it's nice to see, frankly, a company, particularly an overseas Chinese company, that is not pushing those prices up more and more aggressively every damn day, right? This still feels like they are targeting value with that kind of price point. And so, you know what? I appreciate that. I think this is a very, very nice knife, and frankly, I would recommend it. This is a knife that I will probably continue to carry off and on, particularly on days where I want something a little longer or when I just don't want it would be useful. That's really nice. I can't argue with that. So anyways, this is a really nice little piece. So Jonathan, I have no idea what a Tuckamore is, or a Tuckamore for that matter, but whatever the heck it is, it turns out to be, well, pretty excellent. One might say, when the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, Tuckamore. Okay, that was maybe the cheesiest outro I have ever done for a video. I'm going to cut my losses before everybody else dies of cringe. Anyways, hope this has been interesting to you, and have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful... Come on, you were on my channel. You knew it was going to be bad. You were warned. Okay, have yourselves an absolutely wonderful... Have an absolutely rest of your day. Bye now.